Recently, we announced a partnership with
네, 안녕하세요. 이슈와 뉴스 속에 숨어있는 의미를 파헤쳐보는 코인 인사이트. 저는 MC를 맡은 이은주입니다. 블록체인 시장에 관심이 있는 분들이라면 한 번쯤은 DID라는 단어를 들어보셨을 텐데요. Decentralized Identifier, 즉 탈중앙 신원증명이라는 이 기술은 최근 들어서 많은 기업과 프로젝트들이 주목하고 있는 블록체인 분야의 핵심 인프라 중 하나입니다. 디지털 세상에서 진짜 인간을 증명하는 방법, 바로 그 고민에서 시작이 된 기술인데요. 오늘은 이 DID의 개념과 함께 글로벌 시장에서 큰 주목을 받고 있는 신원 증명 프로젝트 휴머니티 프로토콜 대표님과의 인터뷰를 준비했습니다. 본격적인 인터뷰에 앞서서 DID에 대한 기본 개념을 설명해 주실 블루밍비트의 이수연 기자 스튜디오로 모셨습니다. 기자님 어서 오세요.
안녕하세요.
네, 오늘 조금 어려운 이야기가 될 수도 있을 것 같은데 기자님과 좀 쉽게 기술적인 부분들 풀어보도록 하겠습니다. 이 DID라는 거 정확히 좀 어떤 개념인지 먼저 짚어볼까요?
네, 간단히 말하면 내 신원을 내가 직접 관리하는 방식입니다. 지금은 이 주민등록증이나 여권, 운전면허증처럼 우리의 신원 정보가 정부나 기업 서버에 정착돼 있죠. 그런데 이 DID는 이런 신원 정보를 블록체인 기술을 이용해서 중앙기관 없이도 증명할 수 있도록 하자는 개념입니다.
네, 그렇다면 요즘 시대에 정말 좀 잘 활용이 될 수 있을 것 같은 그런 개념이 될 것 같은데 이 네이버 아이디라던가 카카오 아이디처럼 아이디와 비밀번호를 누르면은 사실 사이버상에서 또 다른 내 이름이 생기는 거다 좀 이렇게 쉽게 이해해도 괜찮을까요?
굉장히 좋은 질문을 주셨는데요. 말씀하신 것처럼 네이버나 이 카카오 등 기존의 아이디는 중앙 서버가 신원을 보증하는 구조입니다. 그러니까 네이버나 카카오 서버에 이렇게 저장이 돼 있는 거죠. 가입할 때 입력한 전화번호나 이 주민등록번호, 이메일 주소 같은 개인정보가 기업의 데이터베이스 안에 한꺼번에 보관이 돼 있죠. 그에 비해 DID는 사용자 본인이 자신의 신원 정보를 직접 보관하는 방식입니다. 이 DID 지갑 안에 내 정보가 저장돼 있고 필요할 때만 필요한 정보를 꺼내서 보여줄 수 있는 거죠. 그래서 성인 인증을 할 때 나이만 공개하고 생년월일 전체를 공개할 필요는 없는 방식입니다. 이때 이용되는 핵심 기술이 바로 영지식 증명입니다. 이건 좀 어려워서 예를 들어서 설명을 해보자면요. 예를 들어 친구 집 초인종을 눌렀다라고 했을 때 친구가 밖에서 이렇게 서서 얘기를 합니다. 안에서 얘기를 합니다. 혹시 진짜 너 맞아? 라고 얘기를 했을 때 내가 문을 열어봐. 내가 날 직접 보여줄게 라고 하면 직접 보여줘서 증명을 하는 거잖아요.
네.
이렇게 하는 게 아니라 이제 그 친구가 이제 알만한 나만 아는 특정 암호를 불러서 그 친구가 들었을 때 진짜 이수연이구나 이렇게 알 수 있도록 하는 그런 암호를 불러줘서 증명을 하는 겁니다. 이렇게 되면 문을 열지 않고도 나라는 걸 증명한 셈이죠. 그래서 이게 바로 영지식 증명의 원리입니다. 그러니까 내 정보를 직접 보여주지 않고도, 그러니까 문을 열지 않고도 나는 진짜 그 정보의 주인이다라는 사실을 증명하는 기술인 거죠. 그래서 이 DID 시스템에서는 필요한 정보만 선택적으로 꺼내 쓸 수 있고 이런 구조 덕분에 DID는 개인정보 노출 위험을 최소화하면서도 필요한 인증은 안전하게 할 수 있는 시스템으로 또 주목받고 있습니다.
네, 요즘처럼 이 프라이버시, 개인 데이터에 대한 좀 민감도가 높을 때일수록 더욱더 이런 기술들이 좀 각광을 받지 않을까 싶은데 한마디로 운전하다가 경찰이 딱 나를 잡았어. 운전면허증 달라고 했을 때 거기에 제 이름, 주소, 생년월 다 써 있잖아요.
네, 그렇죠.
이런 모든 정보를 내가 공개하기 불편할 수 있으니까 내가 원하는 정보만 선택해서 공개할 수 있는 기술이 바로 DID 기술이다라는 거죠.
네, 정말 깔끔하게 정리해 주셨습니다.
네, 정말 요즘 같은 시대 때는 더욱더 니즈가 높을 수밖에 없을 것 같은데 사실 이러한 데이터 주권이라는 개념 자체가 지금 돼서야 좀 화제가 되는 게 아니라 사실 몇 년 전부터 이미 시장에서는 논의가 되어 왔었던 부분이죠.
맞습니다. 사실 이 DID의 철학은 2000년대 초반에 일었던 이 SSI 운동에서 시작됐습니다. 그 당시 개인정보 유출 사건이 좀 잇따랐고 플랫폼 기업들이 개인정보를 독점적으로 활용하면서 신원은 국가나 기업이 아니라 개인이 통제해야 한다는 움직임이 일었죠. 그래서 이후 블록체인 기술이 등장하면서 이런 논의가 본격화됐고 마이크로소프트나 IBM, 소버린 등과 같은 기업들이 DID 관련 사업을 주도했습니다. 그리고 2021년에는 월드와이드 웹 컨소시엄에서 DID를 공식 웹 표준으로 채택하면서 기술적 기반이 마련됐습니다.
네, 이렇게 DID라는 개념 자체가 뭐 새로운 것은 아니지만 최근에 유독 또 생태계에서 다시 한번 활발하게 언급이 되고 있는 이유는 뭐일지도 궁금한데요.
네, 아무래도 가장 큰 이유는 이 AI의 폭발적인 확산이 아닐까
네.
싶습니다. 지금 온라인상에서 보면 AI 봇이 진짜 넘쳐납니다.
이제 진짜가 뭔지 판별하기도 굉장히 어렵죠.
네, 그렇죠. 예를 들면 저희가 온라인 쇼핑 많이 하지 않습니까? 이제 후기 같은 거를 봐서 좀 이렇게 뭘 살까 판단을 할 때도
네.
쇼핑몰 후기나 이런 SNS 댓글을 보면 사람이 쓴 게 아니라 AI 봇이 쓴 글들이 또 많습니다. 그래서 뭐 광고 클릭을 유도하거나 뭐 여론 조작을 하는 계정도 대부분 AI 봇이죠. 이런 AI 봇 계정이 수만 개씩 만들어지니까 이게 진짜 사람인지 아니면
그렇죠.
기계인지 되게 구분하기가 정말 어려워졌습니다. 게다가 디지털 금융이 활성화되면서 이 KYC, 즉 고객 신원 확인 절차 비용도 폭발적으로 늘고 있습니다. 여기에 최근 해킹이나 개인정보 유출 사건이 계속되면서 신뢰 가능한 디지털 신원 시스템의 필요성이 급부상한 겁니다.
네, 한마디로 AI가 판치는 시대 속에서도 이게 진짜 사람인지 봇인지를 또 판가름할 수 있는 기술이기도 하고 내가 정말 나임을 증명해야 되는데도 모든 정보를 공개하는 게 아니라 내가 딱 원하는 이 정보들만 선택해서 공개할 수 있는 기술이 DID다 생각을 해주시면 될 것 같은데요. 그렇다면 이미 몇 년째 계속해서 개발과 확장이 있었는데 지금 시장의 규모는 어느 정도까지 커지고 얼마나 많은 기업들이나 프로젝트들이 현재 활동하고 있을까요?
네, 시장 조사에 따르면 글로벌 DID 시장은 2024년 기준 약 10억 달러 수준이고 2030년에는 100억 달러 이상으로 성장할 전망입니다. 현재 마이크로소프트의 엔트라나 블록체인 기반 인증 프로젝트 소버린 그리고 스프루스 아이디 등이 대표적인 기업으로 꼽히고 있죠. 또 가상자산 시장에서는 월드코인이나 오늘 소개할 휴머니티 프로토콜이 시장 내 새로운 강자로 급부상하고 있습니다.
네, 월드코인은 또 홍채를 인식해서 내가 진짜 나다를 또 증명을 해내야 되는 프로젝트여서 시장에서도 참 많은 관심을 갖기도 했었는데 오늘 방금 언급 주셨던 이 휴머니티 프로토콜은 어떤 프로젝트인지 좀 간단히 소개 가능할까요?
네, 휴머니티 프로토콜은 AI 시대의 신뢰 인프라를 만들겠다는 목표를 가진 프로젝트입니다. 인간임을 증명하는 블록체인 기반 DID 기술을 중심으로 AI가 지배하는 세상에서 진짜 사람의 존재를 확인하는 인프라를 구축하려는 거죠. 결국 이 프로젝트는 단순한 블록체인 서비스가 아니라 AI 시대의 인간 중심 기술을 실현하려는 움직임이라고 볼 수도 있습니다. 앞으로의 인터넷 질서를 사람 중심으로 다시 세우겠다는 굉장히 상징적인 비전을 담고 있죠. 그리고 이런 대단한 프로젝트를 이렇게 직접 다루는 건 솔직히 코인마켓 워치니까 가능한 게 아닐까 싶은데요. AI와 블록체인의 교차점, 그 중심에선 휴머니티 프로토콜을 이렇게 방송에서 생생하게 만나볼 수 있는 건 오직 저희 코인마켓 워치, 코인 인사이트에서만 가능합니다. 그래서 시청자분들도 오늘 이 시간을 통해서 많은 인사이트 얻어 가셨으면 좋겠습니다.
네, 기술의 발전과 함께 꼭 필요한 게 이 데이터에 대한 나의 주권, 그리고 봇과 진짜 사람임을 확실하게 좀 디바이드 해주는 기술이 아닐까 싶은데 그 기술 한가운데 있는 휴머니티 프로토콜에 대한 소개까지 함께 받아봤습니다. 이어서 저희가 휴머니티 프로토콜의 테렌스 곽 CEO를 직접 모시고 좀 온라인상에서 이야기를 해봐야 될 것 같은데요. 온라인으로 연결돼 있는 것 같습니다. 안녕하세요. 네, 먼저 휴머니티 프로토콜이란 어떤 프로젝트인지 간단히 소개해 주실까요?
So Humanity Protocol is a blockchain that we're building for data and identity. We think that in the age of AI, it's hard to verify things. There's a lot of artificiality. And so we're building infrastructure for both the Web3 and the traditional technology world so that we can allow people to prove and verify different things. Starting with verifying that they're a human being in the digital world, all the way to different attributes such as nationality, KYC, your proof of assets, your education, your proof of employment, different sort of things that we think are important attributes for verification.
네, 기존의 정부나 기관이 맡아왔었던 신원 인증이 블록체인 생태계로 옮겨간다는 거는 조금 쉽게 어떤 의미로 받아들일 수 있을까요?
So when it comes to identity verification, historically, it's handled by governments, whether it's maybe it's your national ID, your driver's license, et cetera, But we actually think when it comes to identity, there are many different types of attributes that a government may or may not be able to verify, right? It might be, for example, how much money you have. It might be your loyalty status for different travel programs. might be where you went to school, where you work. And then actually in the digital world, if we think about sort of national IDs, it's now really easy to actually falsify and create fake documents just with Photoshop online. And so what we're building with Humanity Protocol is an identity validator network of different entities that are trusted. They are coming together to essentially issue verifiable credentials for individuals. And this way, we think this is much more scalable. It almost becomes a global passport for all of our users.
네, 요즘 같은 시대에 그렇다면 인간임을 증명하는 것이 최근 들어서 더 중요해진 이유는 뭘까요?
I think proving humanity is a very bizarre thing to think about if you take it 3, 4, 5 years back, right? I think historically we expect any sort of person to be a person. Anybody you interact with online is generally some other person behind a computer. I think over the last couple of years, what you realize is that any sort of website you're heading onto, you're picking traffic lights, you're solving math formulas. There's an importance in terms of figuring out whether it's a bot in the digital world that is accessing a website or not, right? And that's because of advertising, click fraud, and the need to ensure that advertising dollars are well spent. I think in the last 2 years, once we've seen the advent of ChatGPT or DeepSeek, different sort of LLMs, as well as now with Sora and the video space, deepfake images, deepfake videos, it's actually becoming very difficult to verify online whether something or somebody is actually a human being, right? Social media accounts that you interact with might actually be bots. Videos of somebody saying something might be entirely AI generated. So I think moving forward, this is only going to be more and more important. I'm not saying this is bad. It's just that everybody should have a right to actually know whether it's real or not. And that's what we're trying to solve as one of our key value propositions.
AI와 봇이 블록체인 생태계에 미치는 문제는 그 정도로 현재 심각할까요?
So I think it's part of it is the blockchain ecosystem, but if I take a step back and talk about sort of the traditional internet world, it's when you think about sort of the major business models for a lot of the tech giants historically, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Google, it's very much tied to advertising. And the only reason why people or companies or brands want to spend money on advertising is because they want to reach consumers who can buy, right? Historically, now actually online, over 50% of internet traffic is actually bot traffic. And that's where there's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of wasted ad dollars. So that's just in the traditional space, right? And then when you think about sort of in the blockchain space, I think ultimately a lot of things in the crypto world are tied to financial services and have some sort of monetary value. Whether it's looking at airdrops where people use free tokens for customer acquisition, or you look at DeFi or GameFi, different sort of things where people are incentivized with crypto or essentially with money. There is obviously a very big incentive to cheat, right? And historically, if you think about blockchain addresses where it's pseudonymous and anybody can whip up an unlimited number of addresses, the idea of civil resistance is actually very important. And so that's one of the key things that we're trying to solve by ensuring that we can verify that an account is actually controlled and owned by one single person, and potentially add on different sort of attributes for data enrichment so that we can tell whether it's projects, whether it's founders, whether it's engineers, the various attributes of the people behind these addresses and accounts.
월드코인은 이제 홍채로 인식을 해서 내가 사람이다를 검증하는 건데 이 휴머니티 프로토콜이 손바닥 인식 기술을 채택한 이유는 뭘지도 궁금하네요.
So, when we actually looked at proving humanity, we looked at many different solutions. Obviously, there's WorldCoin with the iris scan, and then we are adopting palm recognition. I think ultimately there are many different ways to verify whether somebody is a person. One of the sort of more privacy preserving ways is using biometrics. The person's palm is actually, everybody's palm is unique, and what we decided to do was actually create technology so that we can verify both the palm prints on the surface as well as the palm veins underneath. This is a similar technology that Amazon's using for payments. and Tencent's using for payments in China, Amazon in the US. And we can essentially verify that somebody is completely unique. But beyond that, for us, it's also not just about biometrics and proof of humanity. But as I mentioned, it's many different types of attributes about a person, education, employment, assets, et cetera, that we want to be verifying about people. Because and I think the question about whether it can just work on a phone, partly yes. We do have a smartphone app that people can download and do sort of a level 1 verification. Beyond that, we're also rolling out hardware devices around the world so that people can actually verify and ensure accuracy. And these devices we're also going to be using. We're already working with hospitals. We're working with events. We're working with different companies so that this becomes sort of access control or a ticketing platform for different things going on around the world.
생체 정보를 제공하는 게 부담스러운 이용자도 있을 수 있잖아요. 이 사용자의 데이터 얼마나 어떻게 안전하게 관리를 하시나요?
So when it comes to security, we essentially do not keep or capture any sort of raw data. We're turning, on the biometrics piece, what we're doing is we're actually taking sort of the patterns, turning them into an encrypted biometric signature, and then leveraging zero-knowledge proofs to do a match to recognize whether somebody already exists in the set or not, right? And then as with all the other pieces of data that we have for credentials, nothing is stored on chain, everything is encrypted, and we use zero-knowledge proofs to check against whether something is true or not. So ultimately, I think what we're trying to do is ensure that any sort of data tied to a person's identity is ultimately controlled by that person himself, and they get to share whether it's a Boolean or whether it's the actual snippet of data with any sort of application or developer whenever, whoever they want, entirely up to them.
제가 알기로는 또 DID 기술 생태계 자체도 경쟁이 좀 치열한 걸로 알고 있는데 이 휴머니티 프로토콜만이 가지고 있는 차별점은 어떤 게 있을까요?
So there are a couple other. If I take a step back, I think back since the sort of the ICO days from Ethereum in 2017, data and identity is one of the key things that a lot of people have talked about as sort of key use cases for blockchain and crypto. Nobody's really been able to successfully implement it. There are people who have tried and failed, and I think most recently there was probably one or two other companies or blockchain ecosystems that are sort of popping up trying to do this thing and have managed to reach some sort of scale. At this point, we've already verified over 1 million people globally. We're growing very rapidly. I think what really differentiates us from some of the other guys is that we're, as I said earlier, we're not just focused on the on sort of the binary of are you a person or not, but actually more on different types of data, different types of things about people that we're bringing in third parties to go verify and attest to, so that this becomes useful. Maybe it's useful from a scamming or fraud prevention perspective, or maybe it's useful from an advertising perspective, or even just from a regulatory, KYC perspective. So for us, it's about creating this sort of decentralized identity graph that can potentially be plugged into by anybody, any sort of company, and ultimately, as I mentioned again, the user gets to choose who they share that data with.
휴머니티 프로토콜의 신원 인증은 기존 금융이나 상거래 시스템과는 어떻게 연동될 수 있을지도 설명 부탁드리겠습니다.
So when it comes to finance, I think there's an intersection of sort of traditional finance now with what we call decentralized finance. One of the key themes and topics that people are talking about is obviously tokenization, where real-world assets, maybe it's real estate, maybe it's equities, maybe it's bonds, maybe it's treasuries that are being placed on chain. And one of the challenges for a lot of governments, a lot of places around the world when it comes to stable coins and tokenization is actually KYC and AML, so anti-money laundering. How do you know that a blockchain address is actually controlled by somebody that is a good actor? I think nobody's really found an elegant solution to this yet. It's still sort of clunky. What we're able to do with the Humanity Protocol and Human ID is actually solve this, right? So we are actually going to be launching our own tokenization platform very soon, tied to different types of credentials, starting with the fact that we're verifying you are a human being, all the way to maybe it's a KYC credential knowing that you are not sanctioned, and you are of a certain nationality. And recently we announced a partnership with MasterCard where MasterCard is issuing banking credentials on Humanity for proof of assets, for proof of income, proof of transactions, et cetera, et cetera. So with this, we can know that a person is actually an accredited investor without doing many types of KYC and asset proofs. We can know that a person has a certain amount of fiat money in their bank account directly through a MasterCard issued credential. So we're very excited for what Humanity is able to do when it comes to tying into traditional finance.
그렇군요. 그렇다면 대규모로 인간 인증에 가져올 경제적인 효과는 어떤 게 있을까요?
I think when it comes to cost savings, we can look at it two ways, right? We can look at sort of the present, where internet traffic is already over 50% bots, and advertising companies are losing billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars, if not hundreds, a year to click fraud, right? Because you have bots that are scanning web pages, they're watching videos, et cetera, et cetera. I think moving forward, beyond sort of the bot problem in advertising, what we're going to start seeing is also just scams and frauds, right? It's becoming very easy to pretend to be somebody else, whether it's on LinkedIn, creating a fake profile, or even pretending to be somebody else with a real voice, with a real face, through video recordings. Recently, Hong Kong, there was an incident where somebody pretended to be a CFO of a company and ended up cheating a company out of tens of millions of dollars. We're only going to see this happen more. But I think when it comes to on the flip side, what we're trying to do is build reusable credentials, right? When we look at the cost of verifying things, it's becoming harder and harder. It's becoming more and more expensive. And so having the ability for somebody to say, you know what, I've verified my nationality, I've verified my age, I've verified my employment or my, proof of, bank assets, whatever it is, and being able to take that credential and use it across different sort of places, whether it's onboarding to a bank or whether it's onboarding to a loyalty program, we think actually that will present a lot of economic opportunities. And in the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, we actually think sort of data verification and identity verification is actually going to be a must simply because of how difficult it is to verify truth at this point.
자, 그럼 여기서 많은 분들께서 가장 궁금해하실 게 바로 이게 될 것 같습니다. 이 휴머니티라는 토큰 생태계 안에서는 어떤 역할을 하고 있을까요?
So obviously with Humanity, we have our own cryptocurrency, so it's the ticker is H. We recently launched our mainnet for the Humanity blockchain. And so H is actually what is used for paying gas fees on Humanity. Beyond that, though, there are a couple of different uses for the H token. Number one is that identity validators. So essentially, it's credential issuers. Maybe it's universities, maybe it's banks, maybe it's different sort of companies. They actually have to stake the token in order to be able to issue credentials. And as a result, they will earn a revenue share on credential usage. We also have different companies, developers, applications. If they want to be verifying things, they will have to pay verification fees in the form of the H token. Soon, we're also going to be launching sort of a DAO governance model where holders of the token will be able to vote on proposals and things related to the protocol and the ecosystem.
자, 그렇다면 조금 더 구체적으로 이 토큰에 대한 발행 구조라던가 공급 정책, 토크노믹스는 어떻게 구성되어 있는지도 설명 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yeah, so the tokenomics, obviously, what we've done is to ensure that it's community driven and that it's very long-term minded, right? So from our perspective, there are some tokens that are reserved for the foundation so that we can actually build the technology necessary to power Humanity Protocol. There's a large portion that is allocated for ecosystem. What that means is ultimately we will be using those tokens to incentivize developers, companies, applications to make use of our products and services. And then there's also a community incentive portion where think of it as a way for us to incentivize individuals, users to be able to come on and do various things. Maybe it's verifying and proving that they're a human being, or maybe down the road, it's also verifying different types of credentials, be it education, employment, financial services, et cetera, as we want to build out a decentralized identity graph that has as many people on it as possible.
네, 검증 참여자에게 주어지는 인센티브는 어떤 구조인지, 그리고 월드코인이 지금까지 내세웠었던 기본소득 모델과는 어떤 차별점이 있는지도 설명해 주시죠.
So I think the goal for us is to operate a little bit differently from WorldCoin, right? So WorldCoin, the way it handles sort of UBI is that anybody who comes and verify gets paid a little bit of money, and UBI is sort of their core tenant. The way we think about the challenges for that, we think, is there's constant inflation in the token, in the sense that you are sort of just giving money or giving value to a lot of people just for coming on board. Whereas from our perspective, the way we actually see the token increasing in value has less to do with sort of giving it out for free to people, but more in the utility part, right? We actually want to onboard people because they see a use for this. Maybe it's working with banks so that people actually are incentivized to come on and get a financial credential. Or maybe it's when they're getting a new job, they actually have to go verify and prove where they went to school or where they previously worked. Or even, recently we actually acquired a company called Moongate, which is one of the biggest ticketing platforms in the crypto and event space. The idea is, hey, we want people to come verify so that they can become, so that when it comes to accessing different sort of events, maybe it's ETH Denver, maybe it's Token 2049, maybe it's Korea Blockchain Week, they can actually skip the line and simply use your biometrics to access, right? These are different ways where we actually want to build out different types of credentials and onboard people without necessarily saying, oh, come here and come here, do something, and we'll immediately give you X dollars. We think it's much healthier to be able to say, hey, you know what? Come here, do this because it's valuable for you, because it's convenient for you. And as a result, we can build out a token ecosystem where it's very much utility and revenue based. And this ensures the long-term growth in the value of the H token.
아, 그렇군요. 그럼 만약 휴머니티 프로토콜이 앞으로도 계속해서 확장이 된다면 우리의 일상이 앞으로 어떻게 달라질 것이라고 예상하실까요?
So I think the ambition is obviously for Humanity Protocol and Human ID to be widely adopted. Think of it, at least in the online world, where it's almost like a single sign-on service where people can actually use their Human ID to access different sort of applications, different sort of services, different sort of use cases, right? And I think unlike sort of some of the other single sign-ons that already exist, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, the idea is that your data and your identity, different sorts of attributes are actually owned and controlled by you as a user. You get to choose when and where and who you want to share that information with. And I think more importantly, that information is actually verified, right? When I am putting out on Facebook, where my name, my location, my nationality, my age, all of this information can actually be fake. I can put anything I want. Anything I put on LinkedIn could easily be fake. What we actually want to do is ensure that this information is verified by a third party, by an identity validator. Maybe it's your bank balance by MasterCard through open banking, right? And ultimately, for different sort of use cases, you actually get to choose who and where and when you want to share this information with. And we actually think this unlocks a lot of economic potential, right? As I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest business models in tech is obviously advertising. It's about getting people's attention. Imagine data enrichment abilities where advertising platforms now suddenly can target people because they're verified to be of a certain wealth, right? They're verified to have certain preferences, verified to have certain transactional behaviors in their past. So I think the possibilities are endless. We see ourselves as building blockchain infrastructure technology so that different applications and use cases can be built on top of humanity. And so that's also one of the key things that we're going to be pushing forward. But we do think the opportunities are endless.
그럼 대표님께서 생각하시는 이 프로젝트의 장기적인 비전은 무엇일까요?
I think, for us in the long term, as I mentioned, the way we think about AI is that it's only going to become more prevalent. It's super useful, but there are also potential challenges and fears. And I think for us, it's going to be important to be able to understand and verify things. Truth is going to be harder and harder to come across, and that's what we want to bring back to whether it's a blockchain space or a technology space. Obviously, there are a lot of exciting potential in AI and robotics, et cetera, but I think what we're trying to do is bring the human element back to technology, because ultimately there is no humanity without trust.
네, 그렇군요. 자, 그럼 마지막으로 한국 커뮤니티에 전하고 싶은 메시지 따로 있으실까요?
Absolutely. Very, over the last year, I've spent quite a decent amount of time in Korea, in Seoul, interacting with a lot of the members of the crypto community, whether it's traders, investors, whether it's other project founders, regulators. Super excited for what humanity has in Korea. We have a very vibrant community, very vibrant number of people who are interested in building on us. I've been to universities, spoken to students, done hackathons, et cetera. Really excited to have you guys on board and really do appreciate your support.
네, 지금까지 휴머니티 프로토콜의 테런스 곽 CEO와 함께 휴머니티 프로토콜에 대한 이야기 나눠봤습니다. 이 AI의 동장과 블록체인 기술의 활성화로 더욱 다변화될 디지털 생태계 속의 나의 데이터를 통한 신뢰가 얼마나 중요한지 알아볼 수 있었던 의미 깊은 시간이었고요. 오늘 저희가 준비한 소식은 여기까지입니다. 코인마켓워치는 앞으로도 투자자 여러분의 인사이트에 도움을 드릴 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다. 시청해주신 여러분 고맙습니다.